In 2018, Ubisoft was at its peak. Record stock price, global studios, industry dominance. In 2026, a projected €1 billion operating loss, mass layoffs, franchises carved out into a separate subsidiary just to stay afloat. This is my first video on this channel, and I can't think of a better place to start. Because Ubisoft isn't just struggling, it's collapsing, and most people still don't realize how deep it goes. Let's talk about how we got here. At its peak, Ubisoft was a titan of innovation. The logo alone became a stamp of quality. Consumers trusted it, critics respected it, gamers got excited. Why? Because Ubisoft didn't just make games, it shaped genres. Assassin's Creed 2 wasn't just good, it revolutionized historical narrative immersion, parkour traversal, and open-world pacing. People quote Ezio every day. Far Cry 3 wasn't just fun, it introduced one of the most memorable villains in gaming history, Voss.
Definition of insanity is.
Voss became a cultural touchpoint. Assassin's Creed 4, Black Flag didn't just add naval combat, it inspired countless pirate fantasies in gaming. These were high watermarks, games you recommended to friends, games that became community staples, games that made people believe in Ubisoft. But here's the thing about peaks, they don't sustain themselves. And sometimes, the bigger the peak, the steeper the fall. 2014 marks the first real structural warning sign. Ubisoft revealed Watch Dogs at E3 with visuals that rivaled cinematic trailers. People were stunned. Pre-orders broke records. But when the game shipped, players immediately noticed something. Critics weren't wrong. Gamers weren't wrong. The final product looked watered down. Compare reviews from outlets like Eurogamer and fan comparisons on Reddit, and the response was unanimous. They showed us a different game. It made fans feel lied to. That's not a minor PR issue, that's a trust issue. And here's why that matters long term. Games are an emotional purchase. You buy them because of what you imagine. When the imagination doesn't match reality, you stop trusting the brand. You start buying less at launch. You wait for reviews. You say, maybe this one will be good. Trust lost is customer hesitation gained. And hesitation kills momentum. Then came Assassin's Creed Unity. Not just buggy, massively broken. Characters loaded without faces, quests couldn't trigger, animations warped. Fans and critics alike called it a disaster. Outlets like Polygon described it as Ubisoft's most catastrophic launch. And Ubisoft did something rare. They publicly apologized. They offered free DLC. They gave away games as compensation. That sounds generous, but here's the truth. That wasn't generosity, that was damage control. Because when a company apologizes publicly for a scrambled product, they're admitting they failed. And gamers remember failure. After Unity, Ubisoft changed direction. They moved away from annual releases and into something worse, formulaic, risk-averse design. This is what fans and critics have since labeled the Ubisoft formula. Huge open worlds, towers to climb, icons to clear, repetitive side quests, microtransactions, live service elements in single-player games. It's easy to parody, but it wasn't always like this. This formula didn't evolve naturally, it was mandated from the top. Internal reports confirmed that Ubisoft's Paris-based editorial team was centralizing creative control, deciding what every major title should look like. Ubisoft's development model has often been compared to a production line, or even a factory, with large teams building games through repeatable systems. Even Ubisoft leadership has described their design philosophy as an anecdote factory, while developers themselves have talked about working as voices in the machine. The result? Games that look massive, but feel empty. In 2017, Ubisoft released Assassin's Creed Origins, and critics said it was a return to form. It had RPG elements, narratives felt richer, and combat improved. But here's the kicker, Origins felt like a different game, because it wasn't following the old template. Fans welcomed it, Metacritic user scores surged. But then Ubisoft immediately doubled down, applying the same systems to Odyssey and Valhalla. And here's what happened. Odyssey had less interesting enemies. Valhalla had forgettable storytelling. Fans started saying, this feels the same. And if you think this formula is ancient history, look at Assassin's Creed Shadows. A stunning world, improved stealth, 2 compelling protagonists, and yet beneath the polish, climb points to reveal territory. Clear encampments, collect icons, checklist disguised as discovery. Shadows isn't a bad game, that's the point. It's competent, refined, safe. The formula works just well enough to survive, but not well enough to evolve. Which brings us to the real problem. Ubisoft didn't evolve creatively. They repeated the same mechanics, expecting different reactions. And it started here. In the words of Voss, arguably Ubisoft's most well-written villain, insanity is doing the exact same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And maybe, just maybe, Ubisoft should have listened to its own writing. Between 2018 and 2021, Ubisoft nearly doubled its global workforce. More studios, more leadership, more intercontinental development pipelines. Progress? Yes. But also, creative bottlenecks, communication breakdowns, vision fragmentation. Because at scale, you need cohesion. And Ubisoft didn't solve cohesion. They made it worse. Each studio generated assets, but central decisions still came from Paris. The result? A top-down safety net that prioritized predictable design over creative risk. That's not how masterpieces are made. It's how franchises stagnate. Then 2020 happened. And this wasn't about bad agents or weak writing. It was corporate culture. Allegations of systemic harassment burst into the public sphere. Senior staff were accused of enabling toxic workplaces, sexism, and psychological abuse. These weren't whispers. Outlets like Reuters covered it as a major industry story. And by 2025, French courts convicted multiple executives. Not civil fines, criminal convictions. One outlet called it a turning point for accountability in the global gaming industry. This didn't just rattle management, it choked morale. Veteran developers left in droves. Creative leaders who shaped Ubisoft's identity pulled out. That vacuum? It didn't get filled. It got ignored. And when the fountain of creativity dries, the well runs dry. There's a strange irony in all of this. Ubisoft's most successful franchise has always been Assassin's Creed, stories about powerful elites shaping the world from the shadows, while ordinary people resist in pursuit of something better. The parallels are difficult to ignore. Art imitates life, sometimes uncomfortably so. With creative talent fleeing and safe formula dominating game loops, Ubisoft began reacting to trends instead of setting them. Example, Battle Royale. Fortnite and Apex Legends dominated, so Ubisoft built Hyperscape. Initial interest? Moderate. Loyal fans tried it, but it lacked personality, no unique lore, no emotional stakes. It was copycat instead of craft, and players abandoned it. This is what happens when a company chases trends instead of building vision. Fans can feel it instantly. Then came perhaps the most tone-deaf decision of the decade, Ubisoft Quartz. By embedding NFTs into Ghost Recon Breakpoint as digits, Ubisoft seemed eager to experiment with blockchain cosmetics. Their logic? Scarcity, ownership, new economy. The reaction? Universal backlash. YouTube comment sections were brutal. Reddit threads mocked the approach. Fans yelled exploitation, not innovation. To make matters worse, the announcement trailer on YouTube reached a 95% dislike ratio. That's not dislike, that's rejection. Ubisoft's NFT push was widely criticized, drawing overwhelming negative reactions and even internal concern over the damage to the company's reputation. And here's the rub. Players weren't rejecting blockchain technology. They were rejecting its premature imposition in a product they had already paid full price for. Bad timing plus exploitation perception equals community revolt. No amount of corporate platitudes could recover that. Ubisoft bet big on live services, but betting big isn't enough. You need retention. Games like X-Defiant launched with huge momentary player spikes, but collapsed within months. Within half a year, millions of players dropped off. Why? Lack of unique identity, repetitive loops, no emotional retention. Retention metrics tell a deeper story than launch numbers ever do. Players don't stay for grind, they stay for meaning. And Ubisoft's live services lacked meaning. But none of those failures, not NFTs, not live service drops, not trend chasing, hurt as much as what came next. Because this one wasn't about monetization. It wasn't about chasing Fortnite. It wasn't about copying a market trend. It was about legacy. In 2020, Ubisoft announced a remake of Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time. And if you were around in the early 2000s, you understand what that meant. That game wasn't just good, it redefined third-person action design. The wall running, the dagger of time, the rewind mechanic. It directly inspired what would later become Assassin's Creed, and fans had been waiting over a decade for the prince to return. So when Ubisoft revealed Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time remake during Ubisoft Forward in 2020, there was genuine excitement. Finally, a beloved classic rebuilt for modern hardware. But then the trailer played, and the internet froze. The visuals looked outdated, character models felt stiff, animations seemed unfinished. Compared to remakes like Resident Evil 2, it felt generations behind. The backlash was immediate. YouTube dislike ratios turned negative. Reddit threads exploded. Fans weren't angry, they were confused. How does Ubisoft, the company behind Assassin's Creed, release something that looks like this? Ubisoft delayed the game, then delayed it again, then indefinitely. Behind the scenes, reports surfaced that the project, originally led by Ubisoft Pune and Mumbai, was struggling with engine constraints and management inexperience. The Anvil engine iteration they were forced to use was built for Assassin's Creed Origins, a heavier, grounded combat style, not the acrobatic fluidity Prince of Persia required. Eventually, Ubisoft pulled the project entirely and handed it to Ubisoft Montreal. This was supposed to be the redemption arc. Montreal rebooted development from scratch. By 2024, the remake was re-revealed with a new 2026 window. In January 2026, the game received an official ESRB rating, T for Teen, which means something crucial. It was fully playable, from beginning to end. Physical press kits were reportedly manufactured, including replica daggers of time. Marketing materials were prepared. This wasn't conceptual. This wasn't pre-production. This was near release. And then, January 21st, 2026. Cancelled. Not delayed. Not rebooted. Cancelled. 6 years of development. 2 studio transfers. Millions invested. Gone. Why? Because Ubisoft entered what executives internally framed as a financial right-sizing. The company had just projected a €1 billion operating loss. Stock hit multi-decade lows. And in a sweeping cost-cutting move, Ubisoft canceled 6 active projects. Which were these titles, as reported by Insider Gaming, that claimed to reveal every single project that did not survive Ubisoft's January restructuring? But it was not enough. Studios like Ubisoft Halifax and Ubisoft Stockholm were shut down. Layoffs spread across Massive Entertainment, Red Lynx, and Abu Dhabi. And here's the brutal reality. Prince of Persia was categorized internally under narrative-driven projects. Single player, finite experience, no battle pass, no recurring monetization tail. In a company pivoting aggressively toward games-as-a-service models, it didn't fit the spreadsheet, so it was sacrificed. Actors reportedly learned about the cancellation through the news. Series creator Jordan Mechner publicly expressed sympathy. Developers who spent years rebuilding the project watched it vanish overnight. This wasn't just a canceled game, it was symbolic. Ubisoft didn't just cancel a remake, it canceled its own legacy. And for many longtime fans, that was the moment disappointment turned into detachment. But there's arguably worse, perhaps the most infamous case study of mismanaged ambition. Skull and Bones. Originally conceptualized as naval combat in Assassin's Creed 4, Black Flag, then spun off into its own title, then rebooted multiple times. For nearly a decade. Players saw teaser after teaser. Every year, delay. Likely rewritten. Outsourced? Who knows? What's clear is this. By the time it launched, the industry had moved on. And players weren't impressed. This was supposed to be Ubisoft's big live service pirate epic. Instead, it became a cautionary legend. A reminder of how infinite delays plus unfocused design equals lost audience. That's not all. Ubisoft made one decision that arguably hurt it more than any other. Shutting down the servers for the crew without releasing an offline mode. This wasn't unpopular, it was unplayable. Players who bought the game lost access to something they legally purchased, and that sparked the Stop Killing Games movement, led publicly by creator Ross Scott. A campaign that crossed gamer communities, sparked petitions in Europe, and even influenced discussions in UK Parliament on digital ownership. That's rare, that's significant. That's a brand costing itself capital with the players it needs most. By late 2025, things got truly dire. Debt was mounting, revenue was slumping, investors were nervous. So Ubisoft did something drastic. They carved out their biggest franchises into a separate subsidiary, partly owned by Tencent. Tencent didn't buy the company, but it bought control of the engines keeping Ubisoft alive. Ubisoft effectively split off its crown jewels to secure outside investment, something analysts viewed as necessary, but also a sign of how much the company was struggling. Franchises that once represented independence now represent survival. That's not evolution, that's retreat. January 2026 was Ubisoft's worst moment yet. €1 billion operating loss projected. Massive write-downs. Stock plunged 34% in one day. Studios shuttered. Projects cancelled. Layoffs everywhere. The market reaction was brutal. Overnight, Ubisoft went from a recognizable AAA publisher to being treated like a penny stock. This isn't sci-fi, this is corporate reality. Faced with fewer developers and shrinking budgets, Ubisoft is now investing heavily in generative AI. Prototypes like AI NPCs, procedural quest systems, and voice-generated storytelling are being touted internally as the future. But here's the rub. AI can generate content faster, yes, but it can't generate meaning. It can't replace human empathy. It can't write nuanced characters. It can't craft cultural resonance. If Ubisoft leans too hard on automation, they'll finish what stagnation started. A future of polished, empty worlds with algorithmic storytelling and no soul. Gamers aren't stupid, they can feel that, and fan reactions on Twitter, Reddit, and YouTube already show skepticism about this AI shift. Ubisoft didn't collapse overnight, it collapsed over a decade. Strategic missteps, creative formula dogma, executive toxicity, fan alienation, trend chasing, anti-consumer moves, financial stress, structural carve-outs. This is a company once capable of defining genres, now trying to survive in a fractured digital world. Ubisoft's collapse isn't about geography or technology, it's about identity loss. Games aren't widgets, they're emotional investments. Players don't just buy games, they buy experience, memory, connection. Ubisoft used to deliver that. Now it delivers icons, towers, repetitive loops, and monetization experiments. Not because it's bad, but because it's safe. And safety is the enemy of artistry. Ubisoft isn't just declining, it's becoming irrelevant. Not because gamers hate it, but because gamers are indifferent. And indifference is the hardest thing for any brand to conquer. So here's the question I want you to think about. When you see that Ubisoft logo now, do you lean forward with excitement, or do you lean back with skepticism? Drop a comment down below. Tell me your most disappointing Ubisoft moment, your favorite they lost, your hopes for what comes next. Because one thing's clear, Ubisoft isn't the giant it once was. But the story isn't over yet, and whether it becomes irrelevant or rediscover greatness, that's what we're here to explore. I'll see you in the next video.